Funding for Nova Science Now is provided by
Just like some well-made cars, some people last longer than others. They don't fall apart. You don't even need replacement parts. What's up with that?
You know, if medical researchers figure it out, then maybe everyone could last longer.
Correspondent Zaya Tong tracked down some lucky folks who don't age like most of us, and the doctors who were trying to figure out the secret to their fountain of youth.
So how'd I do?
Some people are like forces of nature. Aging gracefully is simple for them.
My name is Chuck Yogi. I'm 91 years old ever since the last couple of days. So I'm fully 91.
Somehow, James Harai got to 91 too.
I've been blessed with good health, I guess, you know.
Kind of makes you wonder how they do it.
Do you have a secret to looking so young at 90?
Just don't worry about unnecessary things, you know? I'm happy-go-lucky.
But while these guys are living proof that longevity comes naturally for some, other people are pulling out all the stops to try and live as long as they possibly can. Computer scientist and inventor Ray Kurzweil takes 150 pills every single day.
That might sound like a lot, but it's not enough to just be natural. I take 400 milligrams a day of resveratrol, a lot of vitamin D.
So what's he doing with all those pills?
In my view, death is a great robber of all the things that give meaning to life. It destroys knowledge and wisdom and relationships. And there's actually a lot that you can do to slow down these aging and disease processes.
But is Ray wasting his time looking for a fountain of youth that's just a myth?
The goal right now is to live long enough to get to a future point where we will have technologies that will extend our longevity even further.
In fact, scientists have been tinkering in the lab trying to extend life for a long time, and they've come up with a couple of things that do work in animals. Calorie restriction, for instance. Basically, putting an animal on a diet seems to kick in a survival response and helps it live longer. And they found a substance in red wine that has a similar effect. But what if somebody could figure out how these guys did it so effortlessly?
The fish not cooperating today. I think the camera shy of me.
Cynthia Kenyon thinks she may have found one of the keys to a long life in a tiny, nearly microscopic worm called C. elegans.
So how can we learn anything about human aging from these tiny little worms?
I know they look really different from us, but the basic processes of life are very similar at the molecular level. The good thing about these little guys is that they get old and die in just a little over 2 weeks. Okay, watch this. I'm going to show you something really cool now. So this is the normal worm when it's young.
So it's a nice sprightly worm, what I'd expect a worm to look like, quite feisty.
Now I'm going to show you the same kind of worms, but just 2 weeks later when they're old.
Wow.
So here, this is a normal worm when it's old, and you can see they're about to die.
Oh, wow. So these are really slow moving here. I didn't think you could see aging in a worm so dramatically.
Okay, so now what I'm going to show you are worms that are the same age, but you'll see that they look much younger.
So these worms are the exact same age as the ones that we saw that were almost dead?
Yeah, they look much younger, even though they're the same age.
And they're wriggling about just like the other ones, huh?
So they're like 90-year-old people who look 45.
That's incredible. So what's different about these?
We've changed one gene. That's all.
Kenyon changed one gene in the worm. Genes are made of DNA, long strings of 4 chemicals best known by their initials, A, G, C, and T. Together, they form the basis of all life on Earth. Kenyon found that there was a gene that scientists call FOXO, which had a central role in keeping her worms freakishly youthful.
What FOXO does is it helps the animal to protect and repair its tissues. The reason that it can do it is this one gene controls a lot of other genes.
FOXO is a master control gene, meaning it regulates hundreds of other genes, genes that have a profound effect on the worm's health.
So you can think of it as a superintendent of a building. So if you have a building, nice big building, obviously it has to be maintained. What FOXO does, or the building superintendent does, is to keep the building in good working order.
The superintendent makes sure that the electricity works and that the roof doesn't leak.
It makes sure that the walls are painted by hiring painters. It makes sure that the floors are swept.
But the superintendent doesn't actually do all these important jobs.
The building superintendent would hire workers to do these different things. What FOXO does in the cell is it switches on other genes.
Those worker genes do jobs like enhancing the immune system and protecting the cells from bacterial infection.
Some of these genes that protect the cell make proteins that will kill invading microorganisms. Others are switched on that are antioxidant genes.
Kind of like a rust inhibitor for a cell. Now, most living things need oxygen, but oxygen can actually be damaging to cells that aren't prepared to deal with it. And yes, there's a worker gene for that too.
I'd say altogether there are probably about 100 worker genes that have very important roles. And together, what you get is a cell or a tissue or an animal that stays in really good working condition for a lot longer.
All those processes are actually directed by the FOXO superintendent gene. Kenyon tweaked one gene in the worms and made FOXO more active. With a more active superintendent, the cells became more resilient than normal, and Kenyon's worms lived twice as long. If there's one gene that dramatically increases lifespan in worms, could the same be true in humans?
I went to Alaska 10 times.
Yeah? They have big fish in Alaska, right?
Mr. Harai and the others are part of a groundbreaking 45-year study in Hawaii that's trying to find out.
The Honolulu Heart Program population is a group of Japanese American men.
Beautiful sunset.
That we have followed since the 1960s.
When you hear people my age, they say, it's so hard to even get out of bed. So I said, so why don't you jump up? But they said, no.
What's he have that other people don't?
35 times.
What's important for aging is it's a process. So we've studied the process in these men for decades.
Wilcox and geneticist Timothy Donlan wanted to see if they could find out anything about the genetics of human aging from this unique scientific resource.
This is one of the freezers that houses the over 8,000 samples from this project that's been conducted over the last 45 years.
Wow, so this is like data frozen in time.
That's right, safely tucked away here.
Using these samples, they tested 5 genes that had already been shown to help animals live longer to see if any of them would extend human life as well.
And based on that list, we found one gene that was heads and shoulders above everything else, and that was the FOXO gene.
The FOXO gene, that's right. The same superintendent gene that helped double the life of Cynthia Kenyon's tiny worms. Though everybody has the FOXO gene, these Hawaiian men seem to be living longer, healthier lives because they have a protective version of FOXO.
We found that if you have this FOXO gene, you have a 2-fold chance of living to 100. And if you have 2 copies of this, you have a 3-fold chance of living to 100.
A gene typically consists of 2 copies. You get 1 copy from your mother and 1 copy from your father.
So with FOXO, the area that we looked at, you could have a C or a G from your mom and your dad. The vast majority of us have 2 Cs. About 25% of us have 1 G and 1 C. And about 10% have 2 Gs. If you have 2 Gs, you hit the jackpot. That's triple the odds of living to be 100. You can go to Vegas with those odds.
I'm not very good at this, but I read palms a little bit. And believe it or not, you actually have an incredibly long lifeline.
No kidding.
Yeah, you do.
And not only triple your odds of living that long, but being healthy. So it was a gene that appeared to be associated with extended health span, not just lifespan.
It tells us that FOXO in humans affects aging. You could have imagined that we have the gene, but it doesn't do the same thing. But this says it does.
News of the Hawaii study sped around the world, and scientists confirmed the results in population after population, in Germany, Italy, New England, California, and in China. Near Barzilai of the Albert Einstein College of Medicine in New York,
I am now 98 years old.
also found a similar pattern in the FOXO genes of Ashkenazi Jewish centenarians.
96,
97,
98.
This data on the FOXO pathway that came from Hawaii and then confirmed by us was confirmed by other groups, and in fact it's the most consistent, validated study in this field, suggesting that this is real and important for human aging and longevity.
You don't feel old. You feel young.
And it's also consistent with what we have learned, that there's this whole concept of a superintendent that is regulating whatever is going in the house.
Oh, you gotta go. And in the future, that knowledge could be used to develop new drugs to combat age-related diseases.
Fish on.
And perhaps someday to help us live longer.
Good job, Mr. Harai.
The vast majority of us get an average set of genes. So it's what you do that becomes most important. Eating a good diet, regular physical activity, engaged in life.
As you age, I think every little thing pleases you more than in the past.
And now I gotta aim for the century mark, yeah.
So how do you think you're going to celebrate your 100th birthday?
100 candles would be a fire hazard.
Yeah, it would be a fire hazard.